Welcome. And on today's episode, I take questions from the audience, a lot of really great ones spanning from movement to strategy to how to get more consistent on your strokes. And so let's dive right into it. The first question is from Casper. I didn't put the rating down, but the question is, I have trouble playing well in high pressure situations. My technique cramps up, I double fault, and I start to blame things outside my control. So, Casper, my advice to you is to first off have a repeatable in between points routine to help you refocus. An example of this is to feel your feet on the ground, adjust your strings, and then perform some sort of deep breathing, such as box breathing, to slow down your heart rate, and then have an affirmation because when we get nervous and it gets to the crunch time moments, then that's when we tend to have our mind think about all these extraneous things and the results and things like that. So it's so important that we have something in our back pocket, a routine to help us refocus. And then also we want to focus on the process, not the results. You have to think about what tactics and strategies you're going to use for each point and try your best to execute it instead of thinking about the score, about thinking whether you're going to win and thinking about the future or the past. For example, before the point starts, think to yourself, how can I hit heavy topspin to the backhand until I get a short ball, then I can attack and come in? Or, for doubles, for example, I'll kick serve to the body on the ad side, and then my partner will poach, and that way I can get my forehand if the return is down the line. So you want to be thinking strategically, tactically, rather than what the score is or, what's happening outside. Is somebody, cheering against you, things like that. I remember back to my very first collegiate match where I was up 6-2, 5-1. And then I thought about how cool it would be to get my first win in college. And of course I lost. And then that's when my coach, Keith Purrier, who's now the head coach at Navy for the women's team, and he was the head coach at UMBC where I went to D1 tennis there. And he told me to focus on the process, not the results. So I never forgot that short but sweet quote that's very effective. And then another thing that helps me so much is to remember that the main goal that you should have is long-term improvement. So I recently had a mixed doubles match where I lost. And I kind of thought, wow, I can't believe that I lost this match. I mean, no disrespect to the opponents, but I really thought that, hey, I should be winning this match, me and my partner. And, in some losses like that, I would have gotten, pretty upset, pissed off. But it was strange that at that moment, I told myself, you know what? I'm not worried about the result. What I'm worried about is improving. I'm working on my technique on my serve, on my backhand. I want to improve these things and get them better so that in the future I can dominate with these new and improved strokes. So if I lose a match here and there or whatever, that's not like the main goal for me. The main goal is to improve my game. So that helped me really calm down a lot. Also, you want to think about controlling the controllables, right? So remember that you can't control external factors. Like it sounds like, Casper, that you may be thinking about, how windy it is or how sunny it is and how these things are affecting your play, or, people saying things in the crowd, whatever it may be. But you can't control those things, right? So control your in between point routine, control your tactics, control your strong mentality, and not giving up, things like that. Your fight, your footwork, that's what you can control, and let the rest fall where they may. Also, a big one is to practice under pressure. So you say you have trouble playing well under pressure, which is super common, but that's very common because lots of times when we practice, we're laughing, we're not really taking it seriously, we're just so loose, and all of a sudden some pressure comes under you during a match, and then all of a sudden it's a totally different environment for you. Tense up, and you're not used to this sort of environment. So my tips to you would be to play a friend, play a set, play a baseline game, play whatever you want, and have some accountability. So let's say that whoever loses this game or this practice set buys dinner, or whoever loses this baseline game has to do 30 push-ups. All of a sudden, you introduce some pressure into what you're doing in your practice. and that carries over to help you deal with it in matches. Speaking of which, some unbelievably helpful pressure games that my friend Jorge Capistani introduced to us on the Tennis Summit, which, by the way, that's coming up starting on April 21st. So you definitely want to look out for emails about that. But he presented to us some amazing pressure games for both singles and doubles. And the doubles one, where you only need one partner. And so he had a really cool PDF of that. So I just want to mention that because we're definitely going to cover that on the summit. So definitely tune into that. I'll look out for emails on when that is and how to sign up. And then one other huge thing that helps a lot is to have gratitude for the ability, the opportunity to play tennis, and have that gratitude. A lot of people are not in your position, so you should be thankful that you're even able to play tennis. So I really hope that it helps you, Casper, on your journey in your tennis career. Question number 2 is from Oliver, a 4.0 player. And Oliver asks, when I'm serving, more specifically keeping my continental grip throughout the whole service motion, I have trouble with that and changing it just before my racket makes contact with the ball. I also have trouble with using the trophy position effectively to generate power, and also incorporating the pronating action into my serve with all these factors. So Oliver, the first thing I suggest is something that I did many years ago. Is I used a sort of grip attachment. I think it was an on-court, off-court tennis grip trainer swing tool. So I'm sure that they'll be happy with me mentioning that. But what happens is you just attach it to your racket handle, and then it'll keep the grip. So it like has slots for you to put your fingers in. And I highly recommend that you use that. So I'll try to remember to put a link in the show notes for that. But this grip will keep this tool will keep your grip throughout the whole motion and lock it in place. So you got to go out there and hit a lot of serves and use that tool. That would help a lot. But even if you don't have the tool, I would still want you to practice a bunch of serves with a basket by yourself, and then check your grip after you finish your serve and see, is the grip still in the continental grip, or has it shifted? And just remind yourself to keep it there. Another thing you can do is to separate your index finger from the rest of your finger so that there is space in between the middle finger and the index finger. That's something that one of my coaches, actually Hyon, told me. I used to grip the racket like just with like a fist, I guess you could say, but he had me spread my index finger apart from the rest of my fingers, and that provided more stability and kept my grip in better place. So I would suggest those tips for your grip. And then in terms of having an effective trophy position, you want to definitely practice your trophy position on your own at home without a racket and a ball at first, then with a racket, then with a ball, and feel if you're in a stable, balanced, and sufficiently coiled trophy position. You want to stay relaxed and use a slow rhythmic motion as well to generate power from your legs and core, not just from your arms. So that's getting to the part of actually, converting the energy once you get into the trophy position. And you also want to make sure to uncoil with your hips first, and then time the racket drop at the same time as the pushing up of your legs, which is a common power leak of not doing that, of doing the racket drop first and then pushing up. So those are my tips for effectively using the trophy position. Really just thinking about using your entire kinetic chain. And then in terms of pronating tips, you want to practice pronating with shadow swings and slow motion serves to feel the racket naturally turning over. And of course, maintaining your continental grip, as we talked about in the beginning of your question, will help you effectively pronate. And then in terms of drills, the first thing that you would want to do is, again, no racket, no ball. For right-handers, hold your left hand in front of you and then practice pronating so that you have your palm facing the left, and then you hit your left hand as for a right-hander, and then it'll naturally pronate so that your inside of your hand is now facing the right. So hopefully that made sense. For those of you watching on video, that was probably easier to understand. And then same thing when you hit the ball. So hold your racket in front of you with the strings facing to the left. And then when you start swinging, you want to lead with the edge so that the racket strings are still facing the left. But then right before contact is when the strings will start to turn to face the ball. And of course, they'll contact the ball with the strings facing the ball. And then after you hit the ball, then the racket face will then turn to face the right. The racket strings will face the right side. So then once you get to that progression and master it, then you can start with a trophy position and then do that and practice that pronation. And also another cool drill is to pop the ball on the ground as high as you can. So you just simply just toss the ball up just a little bit and then you try to spike the ball down on the ground. And that actually really helps you practice your pronation because you want to try and pop the ball on the ground and have it bounce as high as possible. And to do that, you need to pronate quickly and forcefully. With a lot of velocity, I should say. All right. Question number 3 is from Mick, and Mick is a 3.5 player. Mick asks, I have a very good slice backhand, but I have no ability to drive or hit a topspin backhand. And as I move up in rating from 3.0 to 3.5, the slice doesn't bother the big hitters, and they poach on my backhand a lot. Mick, great question. So first off, you have to practice your one-handed topspin backhand in a not-match setting. I know the feeling, if you don't get enough reps in on the practice court, then you won't have the confidence to use it in a match. So get those reps in and start with the least amount of environmental pressures possible. So that means drop feed. Just drop the ball yourself and hit it, or have somebody drop feed you, and then play some mini tennis and practice your stroke in that sort of environment. And then you progress to hitting with somebody and practicing the shot. And then you can use it in drills. And then finally in practice sets. Well, not finally, but practice sets. And then finally match play when you're ready. But again, the key is to really get enough reps and also get a good coach that knows how to teach hitting a one-handed backhand well, learn from them and practice the technique. And if you can reduce match play, I've actually been doing that myself. My friends have been asking me, why am I not playing as many matches? And it's because I want to get enough practice in on the practice court, especially in the winter, because some years, like pretty much 80% of my tennis is playing matches, USTA matches. So I'm trying to get more practices in. I'm renting court time indoors and going there and just by myself with a bucket of balls and practicing what my coach is teaching me, and trying to play less matches so that I can practice these shots more in a practice environment first. So also you want to really force yourself and commit to hitting the backhand, the topspin backhand instead of the slice. It's not easy, but you have to commit and say, I'm only going to slice if it's truly necessary, if I'm stretched wide or something like that. Otherwise, hit the backhand, commit to it. And, you just don't have the confidence with your topspin backhand right now. And the confidence comes from the training. JTCC, Junior Tennis Champion Center, they have a saying called trust your training. And so that's what you need to have here, Mick, is train your backhand, get the reps in, get the proper technique in, and you're going to be able to hit it well eventually. Also, this is just another solution, because you mentioned how people are poaching on your slice backhand. You can simply hit a slice lob to avoid the poach issue. So definitely a great play, especially if you can lob their backhand. There's really very few players, especially at the 3-3-5 level, who can put away a backhand overhead. So that's a good strategy. And then take a look at your grip as well, and just adjust it as needed to help with your top spin. For example, just having like a more of a spinny type grip. I'm not a super expert with the one-handed backhand, but just adjusting your grip to make it more closed face, so that you can produce more topspin would probably help. But then don't forget to hit through the ball as well, because some people make the mistake of swinging too low to high, and then they don't get any penetration with their shot. Question number 4. Gwenther, sorry if I mispronounced your name, Gwenther, but 3.5 player as well. I have frequent pain in my wrist after a tennis session. I'm trying different tennis rackets right now. They all promise to be arm friendly. Well, that's a good question. Number one tip I would give you, Gwenther, is to see a physical therapist. It helped me a lot. I had wrist pain, and what I did was I found a very good physical therapy practice near me, which helped a lot. Didn't mind driving anywhere for it. But what I did was I went in twice a week they gave me exercises and stretches to do every day. And I had an app as well that showed me all the exercises. And my wrist pain was gone within 4 weeks. It went from quite a lot of pain whenever I put any pressure on it to being gone. So of course your case could be different, your results may vary, but I found this insanely helpful. And also, just to go with that, some things that I did were, strengthening my forearm and wrist with exercises like wrist curls. I'm squeezing putty with each finger and the whole hand. I'm using those grippers that have certain amount of pounds of pressure on it in it. And then, of course, using proper warm up and cool down routines to help get the wrists warm before playing to reduce chances of injury aggravation. And then you can also experiment with your equipment, right? So for racket and strings, you can try and get a more flexible, less stiff racket frame, and also use softer arm-friendly strings like multi-filament or just a softer polyester string. And then with your technique, take a look at that. Are you using excessive wrist movement? Are you too wristy on your shots? You might be doing that. So see how that might play into your pain. And then reduce tension with your strings as well. Try lowering your tension on your strings to help, generate less vibration and absorb more shock and whatnot. It'll feel better. All right. Question number 5, unnamed, but a good question. 4.0 player. They put the consistency of my one-handed backhand is especially in my doubles matches. So this one's similar to advice for Mick, just lots of practice, shadow swings, even at home, and then gradual lifting of the environmental pressures from drop feed to match play, and then strive for a consistent strike zone. So that's some additional advice. Consistent strike zone and contact point. Use your footwork as best you can to strike the ball at the same strike zone, so the same height and same area in front of you and so forth to increase your consistency. So I interviewed Vesaponka and actually took a lesson with him at JTCC, and his big stressor to me was the contact point, and that's one of the biggest things that he stresses, how to focus, on the ball as long as possible and to have a consistent contact point. And those two elements will help you with your consistency. So focus your eyes on the ball for as long as possible when the ball crosses your side of the net. Vesa showed me some pictures of, I think it might have been like Ronaldo and some other amazing athletes, Federer, and they had their eyes on the ball pretty much up until they contacted the ball with their racket or foot. So definitely most amateurs do not do this, but that helps a lot. And the times that I remember to do it, it also helps my consistency. I also do find that a rhythmic, either a grunt or a expelling of air helps my consistency. So that's something you can try with your one-handed backhand. And then also another thing is early preparation can also help with your consistency, as well as shortening your backswing so you have more time to meet the ball, because a long backswing, especially on fast courts, makes consistency harder. Question number 6, Marosh. I struggle with my nerves during tennis tournaments. So as we mentioned a bit earlier, you want to have a repeatable in-between point routine to be able to refocus, deep breaths, box breathing, positive self-talk. You want to focus on the process, not the results, and then, practice under pressure as much as you can. Because the more you play under pressure, tournaments, competitive matches, as well as those pressure games, the more you'll get used to pressure situations. Question number 7 from Gerardo, a 3-5 player. I need to improve my forehand consistency. I'm trying to change my forehand technique from an arm-based stroke to an effortless power one based on the full utilization of the kinetic chain. It's very difficult for me to move forward with this change. So, Gerardo, I need you to do a bunch of shadow swings and feel the full kinetic chain movement without the ball. And then, of course, do some slow motion practice too. Helps a lot. So, hit the ball at, let's say, 50% effort to ingrain the new mechanics before increasing the speed of your stroke. And you do want to engage your big muscles, engage your hips and your core. You want to load your back leg and push forward through the shot. So I tell myself 3 simple words: load and explode. If you think load and explode, load the back leg and then explode into the shot. That's going to really help you produce a faster stroke. which will also help you with your consistency, because if you're hitting with any topspin, then you don't want to slow down your stroke. You want to actually swing as fast as you can comfortably. And again, think about the hips and shoulders, lead the coiling and uncoiling with your hips and shoulders first. Then your arm will naturally follow through, providing the natural snap or whip that people think of. And then also try to, break down the stroke and work on one change at a time within the stroke to prevent overload. Question number 8 from Julia, a 4-0 player. I'm working on too many things at once. Backhand slice, kick serve, deep volley transition game, overhead placement. That's tough, Julia. So I'm having a hard time just sustaining improvements and transitioning them to match play only so many hours in the day. Julia, I think you know the answer. Work on one at a time. There have been studies that show that when we work on one thing, then shift to working on another thing, the improvement on the first thing that you're working on is substantially diminished, right? So you want to prioritize 1 to 2 areas at a time, max, and pick that one main focus area and, just work on it. That's the most ideal thing to do. Dedicate practice blocks for that one thing, and also record and review religiously no matter if you're religious or not, religiously record and review yourself to track progress and make adjustments. So, but again, simple answer, just focus on one thing at a time. I was just even listening to this on the way to an exercise class, how they were saying, one problem with people is that they overload themselves on information and they don't practice enough. And, similar thought that you really need to just focus on one thing, try it, practice it, improve, figure out what's going on and then improve it. And then once you master it, go on to the next thing. Zion, 4-5 player, not able to find my form, not willing to go on the court. I was a top player, but now there's lack of motivation, which I need as I want to continue with the sport. So Zion, first off, remember why you love the sport. Think about what drew you to tennis as a kid and when you first started playing. Why did you choose tennis? What made you enjoy the game? And then also you can set new goals, right? You can shift your focus from winning at all costs, which is probably likely what you're doing, to skill mastery and long-term success, as I talked about a few minutes ago. So trying to be the best player you can be, which then allows for sustaining losses in the short term to raise your ceiling and improve your skills more in the long term. You can also try and find a new challenge for yourself on the tennis court. Maybe you want to try a new playing style, just experimentation, switch from singles to doubles or vice versa. Or you even may want to help coach others, and that could rekindle your passion for the game. Also, you can change your routine in terms of playing with different partners or on different surfaces, play on some clay, play on some grass if you can find a grass court to refresh your experience, and then play for fun and remove pressure and enjoy the game again, and also be grateful at that opportunity to be able to play. Unnamed 3-0 player. I'm 72 years old, but I play with a group 2 times a week. My movement and footwork is giving me issues. So I would suggest for you to film your movement and analyze it for inefficiencies. Find a good footwork coach. Learn the techniques of the basic footwork movements, which reminds me of my friend David Bailey. I think he had a session on the 12 basic footwork patterns for USTA players, which was a great session on the summit. And definitely attend Tennis Summit 2025 because we're going to cover footwork for sure and movement. All right, another unnamed player, but a 4.0 level. A question about forehand repeatability. So similar to Gerardo's question about forehand consistency and the one-handed backhand consistency question, perform shadow swings, utilize that slow motion practice. And then also you can use targeting drills. So aim for consistent depth and placement in practice. You can put cones in certain areas of the court or ball cans and target those targets. And then again, film yourself and analyze your shots. There's a technique on point. Try to find the same strike zone, contact point as much as possible using your feet, and then keep your eyes on the ball as long as possible. And our last question is from an unnamed player again. Y'all are shy, but at least you're putting your ratings. I have some context. The question or statement is, it would probably be my first serve that's giving me the most trouble. It's not in a place that I would like it to be, and it would also be my flexibility that's giving me trouble. So 2 questions here. So the first serve, I need you to toss the ball at 1 o'clock. If you imagine a clock, toss it at the 1 o'clock position and in front of you, so you can produce more power and put more weight into your serve, your first serve. Practice your toss consistency as well. You should be able to produce the same toss most of the time. And then make sure you're relaxed. Stay loose in the wrists and your shoulders and your arm generally to be able to generate effortless power. Excuse me. And then use your legs to take more pressure off your arm, your legs, as well as your hips, your shoulders, just the big muscles, as I mentioned earlier. And then use serve progression. So you want to break down the serve into different segments, such as the toss, the trophy position, the racket drop, contact, follow through, etc., and build consistency and technical efficiency in each of these. And then please record yourself, as I do during every serve session, to analyze your technique and progress. And then in terms of flexibility, you just want to really build that in as a routine. Make it a routine, 10 minutes after your tennis session or, 10 minutes while watching TV. Just make it small to get you into the routine, and then you can increase the amount later on. And you can use apps like, I think the app I have is called Yoga, or maybe it's something else. I use that, or any stretching app, or even YouTube channel to build a simple and easy routine. It just simply sounds like you're not stretching enough. That's usually the case if you have flexibility and mobility issues. So you got to make it a routine. And some big places I would personally concentrate on would be your hips, your lower back, your calves, your shoulders. But yeah, just build that routine. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this episode, this video on video if you're watching, or podcast episode if you're just listening in audio form of the Tennis Files podcast, and hope that these answers will help you. Definitely awesome questions, and I look forward to bringing you some great interviews and more great content coming forward to help you improve your tennis game. That's what we're all about here at Tennis Files. So with that, thanks for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time.